away. Yes, auntie, my dear Annie. Oh, you New Yorkers, can't you dance the polka?
Hey, what's up, Funkheads? Is it just me, or did it feel like last year's NYCC had better pops than SDCC? I know that the San Diego Comic-Con has the most exclusives, but I really do think that the New York City Comic-Con has been having better exclusives overall. Kind of like a quality over quantity kind of thing. So much so that I feel like I might not even be able to make a worst of NYCC pops video, because there just hasn't been that many bad ones. It might be a worst 5. But in this one, I'm going to focus on the best NYCC Funko Pops in my opinion. And it is just that, my opinion. And I welcome your opinion and your picks for the best NYCC Pops in the comments below. Before I get started on the top 10 regular size pops, I'm going to talk about the best 6-inch pop. There are 3 6-inch NYCC pops that I think could be number 1. And that is the black and white Godzilla. And I like this one because the first time you see Godzilla is in a black and white movie. So this is one of the most appropriate black and white variants there is. I think the pop turned out really good. And I think it's even cool that it was shared with Toy Tokyo. I also think that the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones was a great idea, especially if you have a lot of Game of Thrones pops and you display them out of the box. You can put your favorite character on the Iron Throne. It's also very unique. It looks like no other pop. So I thought that was also a really good idea. But definitely the number 1 6-inch pop for me is the Dragon Zord. And I do like this regular version over the gold version. It's got a ton of detail, it's totally eye-catching, it's got a great combination of colors, and luckily he wasn't so extremely limited that he was impossible to get or too expensive. This was really a great 6-inch pop. Now before I start the top 10, I'm going to talk a little bit about some honorable mentions. I wish they would make some more of these obscure X-Men. Well, obscure isn't the right word, but I guess less popular X-Men, like Kitty Pryde. X-Men has so many great characters that it's kind of like Star Wars, where they could probably put a new one out every month and not run out of characters. I like the classic uniform they gave her, and the fact that she comes with Lockheed the Dragon. That was an extra nice touch. She would have definitely made my top 10 if they would have made part of her body phasing though. Like maybe make her legs halfway up kind of translucent, or her arm, or something like that, so you could immediately tell it's Kitty Pryde if you don't have her displayed with Lockheed. That really would have put her over the top for me, but it's still a cool pop. This Barbossa with Jack the Monkey is also one of the most detailed pops that Funko has made. He looks really good. I love all the buckles and the sword. The paint jobs on this guy were great. I don't put him in the top 10 though, because Barbossa is just the same as the common. What's exclusive here is Jack the Monkey, which came out really great as well. I wish this would have just been released like this to begin with. I think the common should have came with Jack the Monkey, but instead he's limited to 1,000 pieces, which kind of sucks, but overall it's still a great pop. And lastly, I want to mention Bone Daddy. I really like the original Funko characters, and I'm a sucker for skulls and wingtip shoes, so I think this guy looks really cool overall. It's one I like to display out of the box, on a bookshelf or a desk, because he is just really unique and cool looking. Alright, now on to the best of the best. If Funko is just going to do a repaint on the same mold as the common, this is how they should do it. This has got to be one of the most eye-catching paint jobs I've ever seen on a pop. It's so different that I didn't even realize it was just a repaint. It's really cool looking. It has some significance because it's a new 52 version of the Reverse Flash. But yeah, it goes to show that it doesn't always have to be a completely new mold or character. Sometimes it can just be a repaint and look awesome. This Scrooge McDuck is a great example of a perfectly executed pop. The duck characters and their duck bills transfer really well into pop form. I love how they conveyed with his eyes and eyebrows how happy money makes Scrooge McDuck. I love the mold of all the coins. It's really intricate, really tedious. And I love that they used a paint that actually looks like gold. And I also like the translucent pieces they used for his glasses. All around, this is a great pop. Like Scrooge McDuck, I think the Grandmaster is also a perfectly executed pop. The hair sculpt looks really good. The blue makeup on his face was done really well. I like the pose they decided to put him in, and the way they convey the different textures in his clothes, with the paints and the sculpt. And I'm glad they decided to use some metallic gold paint on there, instead of just using a flat paint, and then in the future making a metallic version and then trying to sell it as an exclusive to double dip the fans. They decided to make the Grandmaster perfect to begin with, and it's definitely a must-have if you're a Thor Ragnarok fan. The Halloween Goofy from Kingdom Hearts is one of the most detailed pops out of any con. I really appreciate all that tiny little stitching they had to sculpt in, And all the frayed pieces of his outfit and his shoes and his head. The tiny little pumpkin on the end of his nose. His hands are sculpted really well. And the color scheme is nice. And I like that they put 2 different eyes on this guy. Just a ton of awesome details, which is what you want from an extra special Comic-Con exclusive Funko Pop. And similar to the Halloween Goofy, I put Bogart as Snape on the list because of all these awesome details. One of my favorites being is that one of the cats around his neck actually has a mouse in his mouth. And they even gave the cat pop eyes and also the vulture on his head pop eyes. A lot of great details in those little gloves he's wearing, the purse, the spiders, the texture in all the clothes, the little necklace. Just a ton of details in this guy. Very, very unique. Now this pop does have a few of the things that bug me and I often complain about, like the extremely low number at only 1,000 pieces. But since it's not the only version of the character, I don't mind it as much. And the only difference is the flocking. But this is just an amazing sculpt. It turned out really well. And I think that the abominable snowman should be flocked. And I do think that it is one of the most wanted NYCC pops by collectors. Even though there's a very similar one already available. This is the perfect version of this character, and it just looks amazing. I especially love that combination of blue, red, and white. Looks really great. I don't put him higher on the list though because of those things I mentioned. The fact that he's only 1,000 pieces, and the only difference is that he's flocked, even though that is a pretty important difference. Now I could be getting affected by the nostalgia I feel for the character, but I do think that Destro came out perfectly. They got the details of his clothing just right. I like that they gave him a gun because he is an arms dealer. And they did put him in the old school pop pose so he matches the other G.I. Joes. But with just a lot more detail, but not too much detail that it didn't look like it belonged in the same series. But the best part is the chrome head. The original Destro action figure had a chrome head, like a shiny chrome head. So I'm glad that Funko didn't just paint it gray or even a metallic silver. They made it actual chrome, which is what they should have done with the Cobra Commander that has the face mask. That should have been chrome as well. Maybe one day they'll fix that. But yeah, there is not one thing I would change on this Destro pop. I feel like every single detail is absolutely perfect. One of the things I like about Funko is that they don't shy away from making controversial characters. And Speedy Gonzales is one of those that maybe a handful of people have been offended by in the past. Sometimes the offended have a louder voice than the rest of us. So it could be 100 people that are offended by this guy, but it'll feel like it's 1,000,000 because of how loud they proclaim it. But I'm Mexican American myself, and I love Speedy Gonzales. It was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid. My parents liked Speedy Gonzales. Everybody I knew liked Speedy Gonzales, whether they were black, white, Asian, or Hispanic. So I'm really glad they made him. And his pop turned out really great. I love the big, huge sombrero, the sculpt on his face. If you look closely at the picture of him on the box, his mouth is closed. But it looks like somewhere they decided to make his mouth open, and that was a great choice because it just looks more like Speedy with his mouth kind of happy like that. The hair poking out looks really good. I personally own this pop, so I can say that the paint job was really good on it. It's just an awesome piece to have. The only thing is I wish they would have made 15,000 of these so more fans could get their hands on them. I honestly think that the Liberty Freddy Funko is probably the best Freddy Funko they've ever made. It doesn't get any more appropriate than making a Statue of Liberty pop for the New York Comic Con. And I think they got the color and the weathering just right. I really like the sculpt of the body and the crown. It's a great marriage of Funko and New York. I like the extra detail of the golds for the flame and that they made the eyes a slightly different blue. And I think the weathering looks really nice on it. They could have easily just painted it a solid green color and it would have been fine. But the weathering makes it look extra nice. And I also like that they didn't just put it in a regular Freddy Funko box. You know, that same generic box that they put all the Freddy Funkos in. They actually made a special box with the Liberty Freddy on it. That's another extra nice touch. I hope Funko makes more of these kind of landmark or city-specific Freddy Funkos in the future. And the fact that I made the Killing Joke Joker #1 is probably not a surprise to people that watch my videos. This is one of my favorite pops that Funko has ever put out from a really great Batman story. And like I was saying earlier with the Speedy Gonzales pop, this is another controversial figure because yeah, the Joker is already a homicidal maniac to begin with, but the Joker from this story is extra dark, extra evil, and just something you'd never imagine being made into like a cute toy or collectible. But they did it and they really pulled it off. Love all the details in the camera. the translucent plastic they used for the glass, the way they painted it to make it look like it had liquid inside. Really well executed, really well painted. This is one of the best painted pops I've ever seen. Everything about this pop is absolutely perfect. It's a 100% new mold, and it's everything that Comic-Con exclusives should be. Alright guys, those were my picks for the best NYCC Funko Pops that have been produced so far. Let me know in the comments below which ones are your favorites, which ones are your least favorites from the New York Comic Con, and what characters you hope to see in the future. One of my top picks would be to finally get a Rogue and a Gambit, maybe a Meek from Thor Ragnarok, or Valkyrie in her actual Valkyrie armor. Going back to the X-Men, I'd also like a Dazzler and Jubilee. I pretty much want a whole lot of X-Men. Let me know what's on your wish list. Alright guys, thanks for watching and take it easy.
Then we had another drink before we sat to eat. The liquor was so awful strong I quickly fell asleep. To away, yes Auntie, my dear Annie. Oh, you New Yorkers, can't you dance the polka? To away, yes Auntie, my dear Annie.